as mentioned, my name's Alex Davenport. I'm a senior digital education developer at University of Birmingham. I also lead our digital education AI working group as well. So today I'm going to be talking around AI literacy for the third space, but specifically some of the work I've been doing with our digital education team in building kind of AI capacity. So yeah, I guess sort of starting with why I feel like this matters. Understandably so, many AI literacy initiatives and reports I've seen coming out focus on, primarily students and academics. And I sometimes feel like digital education and perhaps third space roles, having spoken to other colleagues, are often overlooked in this. There is lots of generic training out there. There's more kind of professional services aimed like training that's coming out, but this is often around kind of the tools and kind of automation and things rather than sort of the educational and pedagogic judgment. And from my perspective, we work at this kind of intersection of pedagogy, policy and technology, and all these things sort of collide. And for me, I feel like we need a sort of a different kind of approach to this. So in this session, I'm just going to speak about my experience of developing this in our digital education team, and perhaps some approaches that we've adopted that you might find useful. And I'm also interested in hearing what others are doing too. So I'm going to do a quick sort of an overview of what I'm going to cover. I'm going to give a bit of context around our department because that's always useful. I'm going to talk a little bit around what guides our AI practice in the working group. I'm going to work a little bit backwards because I'm going to be sharing very briefly what support we provide for staff. And then I'm going to be talking around the AI literacy support for our team, because those are directly linked. We can't create these great resources and support staff if we're not kind of doing the training ourselves. But I think it's useful to understand what we've done first and then how we're kind of supporting the team to develop those skills. So just briefly, digital education at University of Birmingham, we sit in the Academic Services Division of Education, Technologies and Learning Environments. Our department is structured into 6 teams. So we've got 5 colleges in the university, and then one of those teams is a dedicated assessment team. There's 29 people in our digital education team, including developers, senior developers and heads of digital education. And essentially our core role is to own and manage what's called our digital ecosystem, so tools like Canvas, as well as other kind of teaching, learning and assessment tools. Our core aim with this is obviously to enhance the student experience using digital tech, but that's through our support to staff. So we're a staff-facing unit. And as I'm sure other kind of similar roles is the case for them, we don't just manage the tools, we also support a wide range of institutional projects, including AI, digital assessment and so on. So a kind of brief overview of what guides our practice in the AI working group. So we've got 12 members from our team in that working group, and there's representatives from each team, each college. We lead the exploration, implementation and support of AI for teaching and learning at the university. And our aim essentially is to build confidence and capability across the academic community, enabling them to engage with AI tools and technologies meaningfully, critically and ethically. So I just thought it was useful to start with some kind of guiding principles, I guess. So we come very much from the position of, I'm not trying to suggest that our whole team need to be experts. It's really about understanding strengths, limitations, and appropriate uses that can enable responsible practice. I also think AI literacy needs to be adaptable because institutional guidance, tools, expectations, everything's constantly evolving. So it can't be treated as a sort of one and done approach. That's both for our CPD and also for the support we provide for staff. And I think also, we can engage with AI without buying into the hype of it. And I think it's really important, and this is kind of rooted in the work we do in our group, that we're reflective, we're critical, and we try to be authentic in how we support AI literacy. And I think that's really reflected in the resources that we provide for staff as well. So a brief kind of overview of some of the AI literacy support that we provide for staff. And I guess this is to kind of, to help us lead into why the CPD sort of matters. So we have an AI hub that's hosted on SharePoint. And as part of this offering, we have kind of 2 asynchronous courses. So one of those is an AI fundamentals course. This is 4 hours and it's available for all staff. We have previously had our own course that we developed in-house, similar to this a couple of years ago, and this is sort of a replacement for that particular course. The previous course was just available for teaching staff, so now we've moved into something that can support a wider audience. And this is developed with the Digital Education Council, who are an organisation with representatives of institutions across the globe. They support webinars, working groups, and all things related to digital education. And we've worked with them to develop this resource for our staff. And it's about that higher education specific AI literacy. And really it's designed to give them a foundational understanding of how they can use it in their role. So adding on to that, we also have our AI Explorer modules. So these are 45-minute courses. And I should say, yeah, we've launched both of these this year, which that timing will sort of come in when I talk around the digital education CPD. And these are teaching staff focused, but we also recognise that some of the things we cover might be applicable to other roles as well. So they're not limited to those, but we've designed it with those people in mind. And these are focused Canvas courses, and they build on the AI fundamentals, but offer practical and UOB specific, so University of Birmingham specific guidance on AI at the University of Birmingham, AI in accessibility, AI in teaching, and AI in assessment. I'm not going to go into too much detail of these now, but we also have some other resources that we support as well. So we have an AI teaching resource repository. This was actually first developed as part of our previous course, and it's an open resource that staff can submit things to, split into 5 categories. So we've got assessment, critical AI literacy, fundamentals, research skills, and staff use. We've got tags on there for different modes of teaching and different applications. So staff can use that as a way to get inspiration or adapt it for their own practice. We also have a community of practice team site where colleagues can kind of share insights and kind of discuss. And then I mentioned the Digital Education Council membership before, but we also have access to what's called a members area. So there's access to monthly webinars, reports, and so on. So that's all available to our staff. We're actually currently doing a bit of engagement work around bringing awareness to the digital education resources at the moment. So now I've kind of set, I guess, the stage. I'm going to talk very specifically now around the AI literacy I've been doing with our digital education team. And I guess the question is, how do we sort of build the skills to facilitate this really great and important work? And all the resources I've just mentioned have been developed by our group as well. So the first place I'll start is in September last year. So this was ahead of developing and launching these new resources. We've done quite a lot of work. We've done workshops. We did the course previously. So we wanted a chance to kind of do a bit of a check-in, see how everyone was feeling at the start of the new academic year. And running this kind of AI skills check-in essentially. So the idea is it was a 10-minute form that they could fill in. We did it in the session alongside some other activities. And the goal was to sort of surface confidence levels. How did they feel supporting, whether it's academics, colleagues, peers, with using AI, but also highlighting areas that they feel like they might like to develop, a bit further. It wasn't about checking up on people. It was very much about we want to kind of support everyone to the best ability that we can and kind of build something together as well. We also asked them around kind of, external approaches, how confident they felt with things like that. I also asked the question around what, if anything, currently limits your confidence in supporting others. And what came through most strongly from this was, and I'm sure lots of people can relate to this, staying meaningfully engaged when the field is changing so quickly and there's such limited time to sort of keep pace with it all. So that really stuck with me, which led to this sort of next initiative. So these are AI insight sessions. So these essentially have been established to recognise or attempt to recognise the sort of fast pace of the AI landscape and how challenging it can be to stay on top of everything. So essentially what we do is we have a meeting every 2 weeks and we dedicate 10-15 minutes of that time to a kind of an AI insights session. And essentially what happens is a member of the group goes away and they watch a webinar, they go to a talk, they read an article, and then they bring back some kind of key takeaways and reflections from that. So instead of all of us feeling like we have to go to all the things all the time, it's kind of grouping our kind of collective efforts essentially. And we decide on these topics as a group as well, which is really nice. So we've got a Padlet where we kind of brainstorm things that people would like to hear about, and then we kind of put a little schedule together. And we've covered topics so far of, some of us went to Alt last year, so AI at Alt. We've also talked around assistants and agents, AI and accessibility, and a whole host of different topics. And we've had 9 so far. We've also got a playlist, which is the image on screen. So this is a convenient way to catch up, but also we share this with our wider digital education team as well. I will say this has been really well received from the group so far. I've also found it really useful. We're currently taking a break at the moment, so we tend to do a block and then we have sort of a month or so off, and then we kind of start up again. But I guess this is really about normalising that sort of ongoing learning as part of our role. The next thing we've done was in January, which was called our sort of shut up and learn sessions. So this essentially was protected departmental CPD time. So the whole digital education team were kind of given time to complete this AI literacy course, so the DEC one that I mentioned earlier, together. So the idea was that we have 4 sessions. They were on every Friday, and 1 hour would be, you know, microphones off, cameras off, you join the call, you do the course, and then there's 15 minutes at the end for an optional sort of discussion. People found blocking that time out really helpful. It's so easy to kind of say you're going to do something, isn't it? I'm going to do that course, and then you just don't do it because life. So we've actually also rolled out some of these resources that we developed for this to the wider institution. So we have on our SharePoint page ideas for doing this course as a team, but also ideas for doing it as an individual. So in going to February then, we ran a supporting academic use of AI workshop. So this was our working group delivering it for the digital education team. So the idea with this was around building a shared understanding of how we can support academics in navigating AI in teaching, learning and assessment, using kind of practical scenarios. So actually using FAQs that we get quite regularly, or things that we've heard about from colleagues. And essentially, this was also about kind of building understanding, but also clarifying our remit and boundaries, like what we can answer, what we can signpost, and where issues sometimes sit beyond our scope, but also acknowledging that we can't know everything, and sometimes there isn't an answer as well, which can be really challenging. And this was also an opportunity to explore the university's kind of guidance and resources that we'd launched, so getting the team familiar with those in an interactive way. This worked really well, and we had really good feedback from our wider team. So essentially it was 1 hour, and there were 5 scenarios that we kind of wrote, and then that AI working group ran it. And the image on screen is, even though we're a digital education team, we still love pen and paper in the session. But yeah, they found it really useful. And I think for some of our team, just knowing that it's okay to kind of sit in the not knowing space and acknowledging the uncertainty, I think they found that really useful. And I'll come back to kind of future sessions we've got planned as well. So sort of just lastly, over the last month, we've been doing as a group some CPD on different AI tools that we have as part of an AI pilot at the moment. So Microsoft 365 Copilot, we've got Elm, Edinburgh Access to Language Models, and Nebula One as well. So we've been doing this as a group, and essentially this session was like bringing together the things that we'd learned from that. So it was a bit of a deep dive in sharing some some personal assistance that people had developed using Copilot 365, and also an example of an institutional one that's ongoing at the moment. I mentioned the CPD, so we did some stuff on our own, and then we came back as a group and we discussed things like, how do you find it useful personally? How do you think this could be good for a team? What do you think of the teaching applications? And very much through that critical lens, so the pros and the cons, and the different considerations. From the personal side, we had someone who developed an assistant for navigating all the different guidance that exists in different places. So SharePoint, the website, wherever it might sit. We also had a colleague who developed one for an accessibility one for helping them manage their kind of meeting actions and notes. And we also had two colleagues who shared a qualitative analysis assistant that they've been working on at the moment for another project. And then the institutional one was really interesting. So that's one that's been developed at the moment to help students navigate our digital tools and how they could be used for assessment. And obviously the considerations for something you want to use personally and something that needs to be rolled out on a larger scale are very different. So kind of having conversations around what that looks like. I think even from the examples that were shared, it was very clear for all of us. We need to be clear around, how these tools can be helpful, what is there actually time saved in some of these things, and thinking about where they truly add value. And this has set us up nicely now because in the summer sometime, we're doing a half-day workshop for the whole digital education team again. So now that our team feel like they're kind of skilled up enough, we can plan that wider session to support the wider team. So just to sort of wrap up, I guess, some key takeaways, and I guess it's important to note that this is still ongoing work and it's going to change, but these are certainly things that have stood out for me so far. So I think AI literacy in the context we've been working in for digital education, it's not just about tools, it's about judgment, confidence, and that can mean lots of things, interpretation and so on. It's complex. And I think collective CPD, from my experience so far, really matters, and I feel like it really works. It shares the load, it supports learning as a journey, it builds that sense of togetherness in an area that can often feel very isolating and uncertain. And coming to uncertainty, working with uncertainty is unavoidable. I think we've sort of acknowledged that as a group, but then how can we kind of support colleagues to navigate this as sort of a core professional skill? And also making it durable. So actually, I feel like embedding these into our working group meetings and practice has sort of normalized that ongoing learning, and makes it more durable and realistic rather than a kind of one-off or add-on initiative. And the same kind of thing applies to the work that we do for staff as well. And I think if there's one thing I would emphasize from all of this, and our digital education team and the work we've been doing, I think we've sort of accepted that it's not necessarily about keeping up with the technology, but how can we ensure that we're creating conditions for thoughtful and responsible practice at pace. I don't necessarily have an answer to that yet, but these are some of the things that we found are working, and there might be, practices that others might find useful too. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy for questions, or even if you're doing something with your team, I'd love to hear what you're doing. So you can either unmute and talk about it, or feel free to get in touch.